How do you build critical thinking skills? How do you give people direction? When we take an elephant and we eat it in bite sizes, it's easier to eat the whole elephant. And frameworks is just a creative way to build that in. The confused customer doesn't buy, a confused employee doesn't follow.
You have to show people a path to making more money. And if you show them with role playing and upselling and all these things in a nice controlled manner, they're going to make more money. They're going to like their job. They're going to feel better about it. You're going to retain more.
America's backbone was built on blue-collar business grit, grind, and muscle. This is where you stop working for the business, and the business starts working for you.
Blue Collar Millionaires, back again, me and Kevin. A little different setting this day if you're watching it on YouTube. We're back virtually as Kevin's sitting over in Atlanta and I'm in Tupelo, Mississippi. We'll be back in the podcast studio together in a few weeks, but didn't want you guys to miss an episode. And I wanted to talk about framework. Me and Kevin were just kind of talking about how do you build critical thinking skills? How do you give people direction? And it boils down to the framework that you frame the processes in. So like, I remember back when I was in school, high school, actually junior high and early high school, I can't remember. Anyway, when they have driver's ed, somebody jokingly said, you know, if you stay between the mayonnaise and the mustard, talking about the colored lines on the road, then you won't create any ketchup, meaning blood, because you're staying within your lanes. And that is the framework of driving. Just like the green light, the yellow light, the red light is the framework of when you start, have caution, or you stop. So for our sales process, when we were building out our sales team and the process for it to sell our home improvement services, I was searching for something so that the team would be able to not memorize, but have something to build off of, because we all talk in certain patterns in certain ways. And I didn't want to build a robot because that's way too hard to make a human at like a cookie cutter robot human. So I was like, if we find a framework, we came up with a 10-step process. You know, you do your greeting, you build your rapport, you sit there and you set the stage of what's going to happen. You're literally telling them how this inspection is going to go down. And so you start moving through this framework. But underneath each step, they have their own little scripts and nuances that they can build off of. And we help them build off of it. But it gave them a good starting point so that they could critically think through the process. Same thing when I'm training my technicians or my inspectors. So motor mediation, that's a pretty in-depth subject. But when I bring in my salespeople, my solution experts, and I have to train them to go in and do a mold inspection so that they can identify a service that they can sell after the inspection, they need to have some kind of understanding. So I broke down the motor remediation process into, hey, for mold to grow, you got to have moisture. There's 3 ways to get moisture. You get it through condensation because of 2 different air temperatures hitting a surface temperature at dew point. You get it through an active water leak, and you get it at high humidity. That's the 3 ways that you're going to get moisture, and mold can start growing because now there's too much moisture. Now it helps them critically think when they walk into different situations and scenarios. When we take an elephant and we eat it in bite sizes, it's easier to eat the whole elephant. And frameworks is just a creative way to build that in. Kevin, I've watched you do this with the business you just recently exited, and you were able to teach people that weren't even in your office, your brick and mortar, how to walk a process to build a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah, I love the elephant analogy. It's so basic and it's so true. You have to make things simple for people. And I think that what I took for granted when I was young, because of course I was doing all the selling myself, and I was selling at 15, 13, like it was nothing to me.
Yeah.
You know? And I realized when I was like early 20s, like, wow, people get nervous. They suck at this. And I didn't know the term role playing then, but I was
Yeah.
doing it with my guys in the truck. And like, hey, if you talk to someone, I would do it. It was crazy to me to watch people freeze up talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, man, they're not ready for that. What I would do is I was first doing it. Hey, here's an opportunity for you to make more money. And I would start talking to them about it in the truck, see if they had the personality of the like. Then I'd start role playing with them in the truck. Then I'd start taking it outside of there. Hey, I want to do like 10 of those in the morning and get you
Yep.
going. And I watched people get so much better. But I did the same thing where I was doing it into like 5 pieces. We were door knocking. So it would be like energy.
Yep.
That's the door knock. Hey, I see a problem up there. Then it was like an offer. Hey, would it be okay if I go up and unclog that? I see it. I'm right across the street.
Yep.
Then it was up there, and then come down, have a solution, and
Mhm.
then have a conclusion. And I said, if you run through those 5 things every day, you're going to make a lot of money for me. Don't veer off it. Don't get caught up in other things. Of course, if a dog comes out or a kid, build a little rapport, but stick really basic, be very energetic and friendly. And the guys who did it, which was pretty much everybody, all made a lot of money.
And at the end of the day, what it is it's a teaching skill when you put things into steps and frameworks. Because if you think about when you've been in school or when you're reading a book, everything's in chapters, everything's in lessons, and framework just gives our mind the way it works, a pattern and a process to follow. That's why it's so very important. Even and another way to even simplify it even more, because for some reason, I don't know about yours, Kevin, but it seems like most people, we end up trying to overcomplicate things when we first start trying to figure something out or explain it. And I have to remind myself, like today, I was recording clips for our Facebook and Instagram ads, and I was like, what's my customer's pain point? How do I call their pain point out? And then I was like, you know what? I just need to talk to them. I need to identify their pain point, but I just need to talk to them. So I would just on the video say, hey, if you're dealing with roofing leaks right now, then reach out to us. I'm Chris with Absolute Restoration. We would love the opportunity to come and give you an inspection, document what's going on, and then explain what needs to happen so that we can show you the options. And what I've discovered is many roofs are replaced prematurely when they could benefit from a 20-year warranty roof coating. And I didn't have to get real fancy with all that. All I did was say their pain points is their leaks. I understood what the pain point was when it came to the marketing. And I just needed to explain to them our process, who we were, and what we can come out and do. Instead of trying to get it over complicated in my head, it was framework of pain point, what the solution looks like, and the benefit of the solution. And then I gave the call to action, which was, give us a call, click the button for your inspection today. And a lot of times we just need to pull back and say, how would I just talk to a human being? How would I tell my 3-year-old daughter or son how to process this in non-industry terms? And when we start simplifying framework, people are able to follow it because they can comprehend it. A confused customer doesn't buy. A confused employee doesn't follow.
That's great stuff. I think another one is I came up in the late 80s and selling early 90s, and it was still a very boiler room type of setting.
Mhm.
Used car salesman, Wall Street, smile and dial. So I know all about that. And I remember all my friends, they hate me, and another buddy of mine were doing that. I was doing it for my business. He was actually selling bonds and financial products. And they used to just be like, how do you guys do that all day? Like it was so horrible. But it's funny because we talk about it now in our early 50s of that's all gone now. Now, when you're selling, you're really just telling people about your service. Can I help you? It's very educational. It's very friendly.
Yeah.
It's the way to do it. We all know that. But anybody, if you have people working for you and they get scared by that, you tell them you're not selling anything. You're just telling them about what we do. Hey, we're here, we're across the street, or we're already doing this. I know you guys got dryer, whatever it is. For whatever company you upsell, you're just telling them what they do. You have to let people know, otherwise they're not going to buy it. When you do that, it lets your people's guard down on both ends. The seller and the person being sold to, it makes it much easier.
I've found that you're not trapped by a personality either. To stay on the sales topic for a second, you're not trapped by personality type when you have a framework, a step-by-step process someone can follow with the intent to educate, not to hard close. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that can sell snow to an Eskimo. I can't sell you a tire if you've got brand new tires on your vehicles.
Yeah.
But I can sell you a tire if they're worn unevenly because they weren't rotated, if you've got a flat. if you've got a nail in there. Like if there's a reason that I can identify, then I can sit there and communicate why you need to have a whole new set of tires.
I don't want to sell things to people that don't need it. It's
Exactly.
for decades now, I haven't been doing that. It's a more pleasant thing. Here's one other thing. If you're getting employees to upsell or you're not necessarily just a salesman, but I like to pay them to do basic shit. Like I used to pay guys to get emails, walk into apartment complexes or condo associations. I said, hey, if you sell this, this is how you get paid. But if you just go in there and you just get the manager's name and their email, not their name, but you get
Mhm.
there, I'll give you this. It's like $25. So it's like, then it's not like all or nothing. They don't get stressed out. And what they do is they get a lot more of them for you because they're like, man, even if I get 8 of those this week, I'm going to pick up $200. And you know
Oh
what
yeah.
happens out of those 8? Yeah, they get that and they get one that actually goes through that really works. And it's okay for me because if they're not really doing it or I think they're BSing or they're wasting time, I'll know that so quickly that I'll pull the plug on it anyway. It's kind of like I do this for some kids, for my 3-step kids, but only worked on one. People think this is crazy. I pay them $40 to read a book, and people are like, you pay them 40 just to read it? I say just to read it, but I know if they read a lot of books, they're going to come back and they have to talk to me about the book. That it will eventually kick in, and they'll start practicing those things. So it really worked on one kid plus one of the step kids, and then one other kid. The other ones, they fell off after 3 or 4 books anyway.
Yeah.
So I like to it's almost but if you just say, "Hey, go in there and just knock on 100 doors, and if you get any, I'll give you this." Most people won't do it. But if you say, "Hey, if you knock on doors and all you do is get their phone number or their full name, I'll give you this. But if you do this, I'll give you the full thing." They'll much more likely to go out and knock a lot of doors, and it will benefit both of you.
Yeah, quick wins. I like it because you're incentivizing them because you understand the ultimate goal to your kids. The more books they read, the better vision they're going to have of life. The better vision they have of life, the more they're going to succeed, which makes you happy, but also the less grief they should give you because they understand and have a better vision of life than what the typical person that doesn't read is going to have.
You got to get people quick wins. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I did another one when I used to do lawns. I had guys, I said, if you go knock on the door and you give them a price, all you got to do is write it down back then in a notebook because I'll circle back if they don't take it.
Mm.
Now I know, hey, you told them $40 and it was on this day and this is their name. And I was paying them to do that. And then I would have this notebook full of stuff.
Yeah.
But half the
Yeah.
time they close it. So it's a really good way to do it. But you got to do that role playing for everybody. You have to assume that they're scared out of their mind talking to people, even on the phone, upselling them. It's the
Yeah.
truth. A lot of people are. But once they get comfortable and good at it and they role play and they start doing it with customers, you can double your revenue doing that.
So framework is helpful, fast wins, and incentivizing them with for the fast wins because at the end of the day, you're helping them become a better person through more knowledge. And that better person and more knowledge is going to allow you to have an easier time leading, gives your customers better customer service, and therefore builds a better brand in the market.
And it's great for employee retention. You have to show people a path to making more money. And if you show them with role playing and upselling and all these things in a nice controlled manner, they're going to make more money. They're going to like their job. They're going to feel better about it. You're going to retain more. That's what I was doing. I didn't want guys to leave. So I needed like, hey, I can only afford them back then, say pay 150 a day.
Mhm.
How do I get them an extra 150 a week on top of that? And it's going to be hard for them to leave or whatever it is today. How do I get them to $1,200 and an extra 600 a week? If they're now making 1,800, they're 90 grand. If it's a $65,000 job, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to do it. Next week, we're going to do 2 case studies. One's going to be Chris's business, his restoration business, and him getting into the roofing space. And then we'll talk about why we didn't do it in our windshield business from kind of switching back to a model going residential, or we'll just say B2C. So we're going to talk about when it makes sense to kind of divert your focus onto a new service and when it doesn't. It's super important. I see guys make a lot of mistakes on this. I love focus, but there's absolutely times like when Chris is doing where it makes total sense to do it. And it's essentially a money grab if done right.